I have consulted the experts, and I am ready to say this is the best recruiting class Baylor basketball has ever had. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor. I am your host, Cam Stewart from ESPN Central Texas. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Happy Friday to y'all. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day, and I hope it's the same for next week. I had a great conversation with Ted Emrich of ESPN and Westwood One. You've heard him on Big 12 games. You have heard him on a lot of high school basketball games as well. I'm talking like the best high school players in the country. In fact, he was the play-by-play guy when VJ Edgecombe committed to Baylor back at the Hoop Hall Classic a few months ago. So I sat and talked to him about VJ, about Rob Wright, about some of the great high school basketball going on and some of the best players ever to come to Baylor. And we're going to find out about them, the player. We're going to find out about them, the person. Ted has talked to them endlessly, and he has some great insights. So without any further ado, let's hear my conversation with Ted Emrich. I am here with the man who will be forever known in Baylor Nation as the one who threw up the alley-oop for VJ Edgecombe to dunk on Duke and Kentucky and commit to Baylor back at the Hoop Hall Classic. You'll know his voice very well, Ted Emrich from ESPN and Westwood One. Ted, we're going to get into these guys, but just how crazy was that moment for you on the air when VJ Edgecombe made the commitment to Baylor?
Cam, I'll tell you, it's one of the best parts of the job doing the high school games for ESPN. That is the decisions that are made live at halftime of games. We love it when we have those commitments on our air. There is a special energy. They have their family nearby. Their teammates are usually right nearby. There is the crush of photographers that are around.
The pictures of this one are insane too.
Yeah.
I know you've been through this a few times, but you see like the kind of backed out pictures, and it's like the Beatles at Shea Stadium or something.
Yes. You know what? The VJ's commitment to Baylor reminded me of the one we did a few years ago with Jalen Suggs when he announced he was going to Gonzaga. Those are the two that really stick out to me in the time that I've been on high school basketball for ESPN. And dude, you're right. How many times does any school beat out Duke and Kentucky when they are in that final three? And Baylor did that. Now, I will tell you, I knew that Baylor was going to be the choice going into it. And you have to know going in. You don't, you know, for it, yes, it's a TV show.
Yeah, when it's not live,
but you know, we have to know. They have to in the truck be able to build the graphic immediately. You know, VJ Edgecombe commits to Baylor and all of that. So I knew ahead of time. I didn't know just how much of a release it would be for everyone. VJ told us later he wanted to commit to Baylor the day of his visit.
Wow.
He knew right away that it was the place for him. The culture of joy, everything that Scott Drew and his staff are about, that spoke to VJ Edgecombe. And listen, Cam, Baylor fans are going to fall in love with him, not just because he is the most explosive player in the class, but because of the person that he is as well. That there is a mesh that just fits here between player and person and school and program with VJ Edgecombe and Baylor.
Yeah, and we are going to talk about Rob Wright as well. I forgot to mention that off the top, but the VJ, that whole day was obviously huge for Baylor fans. In fact, I still see from time to time like the pictures of him at his Duke visit with Cooper Flagg, and I'm like, how on earth did we get here? And I
Yeah.
know you probably have to think the same thing. You've been around the Big 12 and around Baylor for a while now, and it's crazy to kind of think of it that way. But I want to talk about that last point that you made there about VJ the person. We see him; he's very humble in his interviews. He's donating his NIL money to his old school back in the Bahamas. I mean, I know you're around a lot of high school athletes, top end athletes, and I'm sure a lot of them are really nice kids. I'm sure there's other prima donnas in there too. But when you were talking to VJ, did it kind of stand out and kind of be like, whoa, this kid is very humble for a kid of his age and his accolades.
The maturity is just off the charts. And listen, are there other top recruits in the country who give back? Of course there are. And it's wonderful that depending on the state that a high school player is in, that he can capitalize on name, image, and likeness. And VJ Edgecombe, playing high school basketball in New York for Long Island Lutheran, is one of the few players who can. But who thinks of, you know what? Can I help somebody like me just a few years ago?
Yeah.
And that next kid who needs help, who could use a scholarship at Gateway Christian Academy back home in the Bahamas. There's just a level of maturity there and a selflessness, the generosity already at that age. That's astounding. Who
Right.
thinks like that? And it's genuine. You listen, the cynic can think, well, okay, is this performative? Right?
Mhm.
It is,
Yeah.
where's this coming from? Listen, I can't say that I'm best friends with VJ Edgecombe or anything like that, but I mean, talking with him in person, in depth about this, both in person, on the phone, I think it comes from a genuine
Yeah.
place. I think this is who he is. I think this is what his family is about. Just like this past year, as Baylor fans got to know and love Jacoby Walter, and
Mhm.
we saw him win a high school national title at Link Academy, and you just knew, you know what? Not again, talented player. Is he going to be a lottery pick? Absolutely, at this rate.
Yeah.
And look at his trajectory. Look what he did his freshman year, and look where he's going. Um, you get the same feeling about VJ Edgecombe. Yes, as a player, yes, he's going to be able to deliver right away, and most likely one and done. That's
Mhm.
kind of player he is. But on top of that, you just get that vibe about him and his family that, you know what? They're about the right things.
Yeah.
It is not just all about me. This is not just about let's build my brand and get out of here. There's an authenticity there, which is really cool and really rare.
Passion, drive, patience. Three things that both VJ Edgecombe and Rob Wright definitely have. It's the formula for winning championships, and it is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. I'm talking superchargers. I'm talking roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. So whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you are burning rubber, you're not burning cash. So with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions do apply. That guaranteed fit only available to our USA customers. That is ebaymotors.com. That is awesome. I mean, that's what we love to hear. At the end of the day, though, we are suckers for our basketball, and so we love having great guys in there. But we like having great guys who are also great players. Tell me about VJ Edgecombe, the player.
Yeah. So I mean, he's arguably the best pure athlete in the class. He is, I think, absolutely the most explosive with a 40+ inch vertical. He glides. He just glides down the floor. He excels in the open court. Much improved shooter. Again, at 6'5", so long, he can become a plus defender. He is heading in that direction. When we talked with John Buck, his coach at Long Island Lutheran this year, he compared Edgecombe to a video game player who just leveled up across the board from his junior year to his senior year. And his ranking in the ESPN 100 reflects that. You go back to the beginning of his junior season, he is still an unknown commodity and he's unranked. Now, in the junior class, it should be said, the ESPN rankings only go down to 60. In the senior class, they go down to 100, the ESPN 100. Middle of his junior year, he cracks the ESPN 60. He checks in at number 52. I mean, incredible rise, right? Just halfway through his junior season of high school. Now you take it through the rest of his junior year, where he leads the Nike EYBL Scholastic in scoring per game. Again, this is the league that also includes Montverde Academy and IMG and Link Academy. And Jacoby Walter was a senior in that. All the great players that come through these high schools that are, for the most part, boarding schools. It's the best high school. It's a national high school basketball conference. So he leads that league in scoring as a junior, takes that into the summer. All of a sudden, he starts his senior year. He's a top 5 player in the country at Long Island Lutheran. So he's at number 5. And when I work, Cam, with Paul Biancardi, worked with him for many years now, and he handles, of course, the rankings. And
he's the list guy.
He's the man, dude. He is simply the man in all caps. And no one knows these players better than Coach B. Inside and out. He watches the games. It doesn't matter if they're playing on some stream that's grainy. He is going to find a way to watch. He's going to find a way to evaluate. He cares. He invests the time. This isn't some just slap it against the wall kind of ranking. Oh, I feel about this guy. This is what I feel. No, he puts time into it. I've seen it. So VJ Edgecombe earned that top 5 ranking. And what Paul always says is when you get to that top, you think of, the very top of Mount Everest, right? That zone where it becomes harder and harder to breathe. And it's harder and harder then to move up. There is only so much you can do. You are in the elite of the elite. And what did VJ Edgecombe do? When the rankings updated in the middle of his senior year, mid-January, he moved up from 5 to 4. Now, the final rankings, Cam, for this senior class, for the class of 2024, just came out today on ESPN.com. And in the final ranking, VJ Edgecombe checks in at number 3. I mean, it's rise,
incredible.
It was meteoric. Nothing short of meteoric over 2 years. And he earned it every step of the way with, again, not just his performance in the summer with his high school team, Long Island Lutheran, but what he showed during the week of practices and, of course, the game at the McDonald's All-American game in Houston, when you have scouts from every NBA team in attendance. He shined there. He stood out. Again, we talk with NBA people that week, and it's like, yeah, he belongs. Yeah, everything that we had heard, we want to see him in person. How does he look? How does he move? How does he interact with players of his ilk, players of his caliber? He is right there. And Paul decided to move him up to number 3 in the end, behind only Cooper Flagg at number 1 and Ace Bailey at number 2. And again, I can't wait to see what he's going to be at Baylor. The one question, Cam, long-term for him, listen, he's going to excel. He's at Baylor. There's no doubt with his talent. At 6'5", around 195, 200 pounds, he was a wing for the most part at Long Island Lutheran. He did not have the ball in his hands a ton. Could he facilitate? Of course he could.
Yeah.
But at his size, long-term, he's going to have the ball in his hands a little more. Again, is he a point guard? I don't want to get caught up in that. Again, a playmaking guard. Can he become that long-term? I think he absolutely can. Just, it wasn't what was asked of him night in and night out
Right.
at Lehigh because they had point guards, whether it was Jaden Reed or Nigel James that he played alongside. Again, how he fits at Baylor, with a guy like Jeremy Roach, with Rob Wright, again, you're going to have, again, that plethora of guards who are all going to be able to play off each other, and it's going to be another loaded Baylor team.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. And another guy that Paul Biancardi had shooting up the rankings, not as dramatically, but still up at the end of the year, is Rob Wright. And, I don't want to say gets lost in the fold, but everyone hears about Edgecombe, and for good reason. He's number 3, right? But Rob Wright quietly goes to Montverde, this prestigious basketball power now, and plays there 1 year and is the point guard for the national championship team. How big a jump is that? I mean, he played at a high level in Philadelphia, but he jumps to the Playmakers Academy. I mean, he's playing alongside Cooper Flagg. He's playing alongside Liam McNeely, and that helps a lot of things, sure. But he's also got the keys in his hand. What were you able to see from him at the couple of tournaments that he covered him at, most recently the Chipotle Nationals?
Cam, I think he was the missing piece for Montverde this year. Just a quick thumbnail sketch about Montverde, which again usually wins that high school national title every year. This is a program that has had Cade Cunningham and Scotty Barnes and Ben Simmons, D'Angelo Russell, RJ Barrett, so on and so forth. Last year, Montverde did not have a player like Rob Wright at that point guard position. They had Cooper Flagg. They had Liam McNeely. They had Derek Queen. They had Asa Newell. 4 players that are all in the top 10 to 15 in the country. And they got bounced in the quarterfinals of Chipotle Nationals as the number 1 seed. They needed somebody like Wright to be the glue to set the table. And when we talked with their coach, Kevin Boyle, who's been at it forever and coached, like I said, a ton of lottery picks over the years, said he's the reason we average 93 points a game. I mean, he is he sets the tone, he sets the pace, he doesn't turn it over, he makes the right decision time and time and time again. No pun intended. This is who he is. And again, just like Edgecombe rose in the rankings, so did Rob Wright from the top 40 and a top 10 point guard in the country to start the year. He moved up in mid-January to top 25 and the 4th ranked point guard overall in the country. And again, in those final rankings that came out today, number 23 overall, number 3 point guard. Yeah, it's just, okay, you look at his size and, that's probably the only reason he's not ranked higher.
Right.
But he's going to be a tremendous college player who has a ceiling, is someone who is capable of being a lot more than that. And, before Jeremy Roach becomes a Baylor Bear, it's like we were talking about it on the telecasts, just a couple of weeks ago, like Rob Wright is a player that you can give the reins to right away. He's made for it. And now that you have a veteran in Roach, that he and Wright can play off each other at that point guard spot, that's a beautiful thing for Baylor.
Yeah.
Rob Wright I'll say this, Cam. If Montverde didn't have Flagg, McNeely, and Queen on the same team, Rob Wright absolutely had a case to be a McDonald's All-American himself, because there's a rule in place. It's in the McDonald's All-American game guidelines that the maximum number of All-Americans from one school is 3. And so Montverde, with 3 top 10 players in the country, that's it with Flagg, Queen, and McNeely. But Wright absolutely had a case. Again, he's one of the best players in the nation. And, that's the deal.
All right, I need y'all to listen up. I need y'all to listen good. I got a big announcement. I have been tracking the leaderboards every day, crunching the numbers, keeping an eye on the scores, putting my heart into it. And I am so excited to announce I am finally on top. Yeah, that's right. Obviously, I'm talking about the hit mobile game Monopoly Go. You've probably heard of it because it's been downloaded over 150 million times. It is a great mobile twist on classic Monopoly that you can play anywhere and at any time. You explore hundreds of Monopoly boards from Vegas to Camelot, even to the moon, all while raking in a huge fortune. You can charge rent on those iconic properties just like classic Monopoly, or you can go after your friends. You can try and take their Monopoly money by pulling bank heists and taking wrecking balls to their landmarks. But my favorite part, obviously, keeping score. It's the leaderboards. It's where you can see who's a Monopoly tycoon and who is going bankrupt. So go get yourself on the charts. Download Monopoly Go now for free on the App Store and on Google Play. And talking about Rob Wright, the player here, real quick, just like a play style. I've watched a lot of his tape. I'm an amateur basketball scout, Ted. I don't know if you know this. I'm very, I'm basically the next Paul Biancardi.
There you go.
But I see him as like, he's not just a patented floor general like old school. I mean, he's got that capability, sure, but he's also not like this high-end combo guard. He's got a little bit of both in there. Is that fair to say that, he can keep people honest with his shot, but I wouldn't call him a high volume scorer nor a guy who's never going to shoot the ball?
Well, I mean, he has shown two versions of himself in the last 12 months. You go back to the grassroots season, spring and summer. He played with Team Final, based in the Philly area, and he was the EYBL regular season MVP. On that team, the ball is always in his hands, and he has to score.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to, and he did. And of course, he also set up his teammates. With Montverde, with all of that talent around him, what does he do? He goes out and he leads the Nike EYBL Scholastic. Again, during his high school season, he leads that league in assists at more than 7 per game. Can he score as well? Of course he could, but that took a backseat to his playmaking. When you have Flagg, you have Queen in the middle, you have McNeely, a sharpshooter on the perimeter, Asa Newell inside as well. He can change roles. He can morph to whatever the team needs. And, what will Baylor need? Again, he can be whatever you need him to be in that backcourt. What I also love just specifically about his game, Cam, I love his float game. That's something
That's
you
valuable.
want.
It's very valuable.
I mean, again, listed at 6'1", you have to be able, you're not always going to be able to blow by your guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw a variety, the runners, floaters, teardrops, whatever you want to call them, from that mid-range distance. That is absolutely in his game. So again, offensively gifted and not just as a passer.
Yeah. Final question for me. I'm going to break it into two. Okay. I'm cheating a little bit, but do you have a player comp for both these guys of like, oh, I know him, and if he's going to be like him, we're really in good shape? And second part of that, with this whole class put together, 2 top 25 guys plus Jason Asamoah and their 2 a top 50 guy, is this the best Baylor class that you've seen? Again, you've been around the Big 12, you've been around high school a lot.
Oh man, yeah, gosh, let's take the second one first. I mean,
All right.
and before Edgecombe and Wright ascended even more than they had, this was a top 5 recruiting class in the nation.
Yeah.
And, it just in terms of the pure ranking now, Edgecombe ending up at number 3. I mean, he's Baylor's highest ranked recruit since Isaiah Austin in 2012. He was also number 3 that year. That's just looking at the ESPN 100 era. It goes back to 2007. I mean, and then you factor in the transfers. Of course, you have to factor in the portal and a player like Roach, and obviously Baylor isn't done. We know the rumors that are out there. They're far from done, it sounds like, and we'll see what gets announced here in the coming days and weeks. So overall, you factor in the freshmen plus the transfers. I mean, this is going to be one of their very best of all time. In terms of comparisons, Cam, I'll be honest, I'm not great with that.
Fine.
Paul Paul is, and trying to rack my brain. I don't know if I teed him up at some point about Edgecombe. I'll say this. I was curious one time. We were talking with VJ, and I always like to ask guys who they really like to study. Not saying that they are modeling their game after, but I use that as an example. Obviously, you're your own player, but who do you really like to study and maybe tailor something that they do that you can use? And VJ this year said Anthony Edwards and Devin Booker. And I think that stuck with me. And especially with Edwards. And again, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's becoming just an absolute
Superstar.
supernova in the NBA this year. But the athleticism, listen, we saw Anthony Edwards in high school as well. And I remember him putting himself on the radar at Hoop Hall, much like VJ Edgecombe did as a junior. And just the pure athleticism, the ability to make your jaw drop at a moment's notice. Certainly VJ has a long way to go, his overall game to get to that level, to get to an all-star level. But it's well within the range of outcomes for him. For Wright, man, that's tough. I don't
Like
want
you said, because we've seen two different Rob Wrights.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, that speaks to his versatility as a point guard.
Yeah, and he can mold to whatever team it sounds like.
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, a guy who knows, again, that toughness, having played in the Philadelphia area, that chip is always on his shoulder. Undersized, who cares? Who cares? He's still going to try to rip your heart out.
Love that. Love that. Ted Emrich gets to see the best before you know they're the best. Ted, thank you so much for coming on the show. Appreciate it.
Cam, anytime. Glad to do it.
Another very special thank you to Ted Emrich of ESPN Westwood One. I mean, he covers high school basketball with the best of them, and he's a DFW guy, so he knows Baylor, he knows the Big 12, and I just thought that was some great insight in there on, not just the players, but also those guys as people, and I think that's going to be a great addition to Baylor's program. I cannot wait. I can't wait. Some of those stories were awesome. But thank you so much to Ted. Thank y'all for making it your first listen today and every day. Let me know what you think about VJ, about Rob Wright, about this recruiting class. Is it the best Baylor's ever had? I think so, but I want to hear from you. Drop that down in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for when we drop our episodes every day. And thank you again for making it your first listen today and every day here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next week. We'll be talking some more basketball, some more transfer portal, and some football. We're going to be hitting that heavy too. We'll all be on your favorite show, which is, of course, Locked On Baylor.